And now I'd like to open the meeting to the sharing of testimonies of healing through Christian Science. Lil.
I had a wonderful healing a couple of years ago. My dentist's office called me to say I should have a tooth extracted, but could wait until after the holidays. I said I'd wait. It came to me very strongly not to have this done. I got that answer every time I prayed about it. Then I had an upcoming scheduled 6-month checkup and called practitioner for help. I was reminded that my teeth are rooted and grounded in love, and to work with a couple of statements from a previous lesson. Part of that was, take possession of your body and govern its feeling and action. Rise in the strength of spirit to resist all that is unlike good. God has made man capable of this, and nothing can vitiate the ability and power divinely bestowed on man. Well, I worked with these statements. I went to the appointment. It all went well and was told there would be no extraction. There was no need. Well, I was so pleased and just kept thanking God and called practitioner right away with a great report and thanked her for her wonderful support. This is the work of the power of God, and I'm just so grateful for everything that he has done for me. I'm just grateful. And thank you for those wonderful readings.
Thank you. Chardell from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Oh, good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank Florence for the magnificent readings. They were beautiful. Tonight, I would like to share something I observed concerning weather. Last week, reports about an unprecedented storm that had hit or was about to hit Costa Rica appeared on my phone. I started to pray, remembering a testimony given not too long ago here at Plainfield that can be found now in Love is the Liberator on page 23, called God Does Control the Weather. I prayed with some of the ideas. Battle is not yours, but God's. Stand ye still and see the salvation of the Lord. Then when I read on our bulletin board last Sunday that our friend who lives in Costa Rica was unharmed during and after the high winds, I felt great joy. I know that lots of people were praying and watching, and I am very grateful. Mrs. Eddy often had prayers and watches about weather, and she said, quote, God governs the elements, and there is nothing destructive or harmful, end quote. I also like to remember how Christ Jesus filled the stormy seas and saved his disciples. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jim from Arizona, go ahead.
Good evening. As I was eating dinner tonight, I could not help expressing gratitude for the beauty associated with the close of another day. The local area was already in the shadow of the mountains to our west. One could still see the bright sunlight casting a lovely orange upon the mountains to our east. This quickly gave way to a purple tinge, but the sky took on a very, very lovely pale orange, a hue that a camera cannot capture. How much gratitude should be expressed as one views God's handiwork. I am most grateful for the beauty of God's creation. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Thank you very much for the beautiful readings tonight. I am very grateful for all that is taught and lived here. It is life-transforming. I had a recent healing on my way to a Bible study class here on one Saturday. During the drive, my eye became very painful and irritated, and I had to stop myself from rubbing it because it felt like something was in there, but it was just getting worse. I was trusting along the way that I would find peace and new understanding in the class that morning. Through the work of my practitioner, I am beginning to understand that God cares for all the details of your life while you are working for Him. It is teaching me a new sense of trust and putting God first. It kind of sounds funny now to say that, but for so many years I struggled to keep things going by my own personal will and still have to catch myself. I see now that I did not really understand how to put God first. The practitioner was also praying for me along the for my trip. About halfway there, I was beginning to feel peace. The pain and irritation in my eye stopped, and it did not return. This gave me encouragement in trusting God to help me as I do the best to follow Him. It doesn't matter how you attend this church or the work that you're doing for God. There are many things that try to stop or interrupt us. To me, this is the one reason we must trust His care, so no matter what obstacles come our way, we can continue serving and learning more about God and doing what God has given us to do. And thank you very much, Plainfield, for modeling us how to follow God and work for Him and giving us opportunities too. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary.
A few years ago, I made a really big mistake in my business, and it caused me such stress that during my sleep one night, I dislocated a ligament, or pulled a ligament in my jaw, and woke up the next morning in great pain, unable to chew or close my mouth properly. And with the help of a Christian Science practitioner and learning the lesson that I needed to learn, that ailment was healed, and I was able to gain the use of my jaw, and it's been fine ever since. Until a couple of weeks ago, when I woke up one morning, and for no apparent reason, my jaw was in great pain and dislocated again. And I asked God, I said, what is this? Well, it came to me very clearly. This was just before Thanksgiving, just before the holiday season. Thought was getting revved up. And it came to me that this was the materialism of the world that was trying to rev up and get me to believe that God had not healed me and that God was not taking care of me. So I worked that day. I went about doing what I needed to do. I was able to eat a little bit, although in pain at times. But I worked that day and prayed for mankind, to spiritualize the thought of mankind, the true meaning of Thanksgiving, the true meaning of Christmas. And I just grew more defiant during the day that this was not anything that God would send or did send, and I was not going to have it. It was a good day because it woke me up to the work that needed to be done to handle the bloody holidays and all the human materialistic beliefs that are thrown at us during this holiday season. I went to bed that night with a great sense of peace about the whole thing, even though I was still somewhat in pain. And when I woke up in the morning, I was totally, completely healed. There was absolutely no pain. There was no dislocation, no nothing. And it's been perfect ever since. I'm so grateful to God for this healing, so grateful to Mary Baker Eddy for giving us the science of Christianity that does heal. So grateful for everything that I'm learning in this church. It's great to be here tonight.
Thank you. Jeremy.
I'm so grateful for Christian Science as I am learning at this church, because it is giving me the way to be free of all the anchors I laid down in my past. In the Lord's Prayer it says, "Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors." For the past month I've been working with this because I realized that there were a few people from my past that if I thought of them, I would remember giving things to them and then feeling like there wasn't any gratitude or appreciation that came back from them. And as I prayed about this, I realized that since God is my supply and all supply, anything that they were given in fact came right from Him. And because of this, I knew it is between those people and God. All I can do is pray that they learn their lesson quickly and heed His voice as well as they can. And from there, I started praying that anyone who might feel that I owed them would have the same peace. I know I definitely did not do right by everyone I ever met, so I am grateful for being able to obtain the understanding and peace that Christian Science is bringing. I'm so grateful for the weekly lessons and discussions, these Wednesday readings, and constant practitioner support. All of it is helping me to see each day and understand a little bit more so that I can be closer to God and do right by Him. Thank you. And right now I have a testimony to play from Joseph in Scotland.
Hello everyone, this is Joseph from Scotland. I've recently completed a move back to the UK. I'm very grateful for a couple of things. Firstly, during the move, my accommodation took an extra month to complete, and at that time it put me under a lot of strain financially, but I'm pleased to say that finally everything went well. I'm very grateful for that. The second thing I'm grateful for is while I was moving, I suffered a particularly nasty back injury, and it left me completely immobile. But a friend of mine from Spain came over, and he was able to allow me to finish the move and also to care for me by cooking and doing other things while I was handling this back injury metaphysically. Really, I'm very grateful for that, and it allowed me to see care in different ways rather than just from the way you would expect it, by whether that's nursing, medical care or whatever. So I'm very grateful for that as well. While working out the back injury, there's two things that really helped me. The first thing was in Psalm 40 verse 1, where it talks about the Lord inclining to help people. And I thought, well, if God can incline, then so can I. Of course, not in a physical sense, because God doesn't have a physical body, but the same rule applies. I started working with this word, and I realized that perhaps I had to incline more to listen to other people. At that moment, I also discovered a verse from Science and Health, which I believe is in page 391, and it talks about an examination of any broken moral laws which need to be looked at in order for a healing to take place. And I immediately dismissed that, thinking that, wow, how can morality come into healing? But of course, morality is a big part of our lives and a big part of Christian Science. So I was looking at my behaviour recently, and well, I was quite surprised at what I'd found. A few days before, I tried to exchange something in the shop, and the person in the shop told me that I couldn't exchange it, nor could I get a refund. And I was very angry about this and very upset. And I kept ranting and raving about the way I was spoken to by this person. And it became a very personal thing between me and her. And I was complaining and posting about this particular shop and person on social media about how their policies had clearly changed. And I realized that I was completely out of order doing this. Of course, in Christian Science, when we have a disagreement with someone, we have to work it out on the premise that God is one and his reflection is one. Reflection is man, not men. And that our individuality is not something that can divide us. It's actually something which makes us more harmonious. After thinking about this for some time, I realized that I had to make amends. And so I went and I spoke to the person and made my peace. And I really understood where she was coming from. And finally, they did actually offer me a refund on the items anyway, so it really wasn't an issue. But as soon as I'd done that, even during the process of speaking to this person, I realized that I didn't have a back injury. It was very interesting for me, and again confirms to me the importance of morality in our lives. So I'm very grateful to have the opportunity as well to recommence recording some of the audio lessons, and that's something I'm looking forward to. So the lesson for me, I think, is incline and learning how to listen as well as to speak. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you to both of you. Luba from Ohio, go ahead.
Yes, good evening. It has been 2 years since we purchased an older home that was in need of some renovation before we could move in. This past week, we made the move into this now beautiful home, and I am so very grateful. It has been a spiritual journey for me, and I have seen what the power of God can do in following his direction. I'm so grateful to Christian Science and to my practitioner who has been with me throughout this journey. And I'm so grateful for this service this evening and the reading. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Bruce. Well, do you think that there are angels among us? I had an experience recently that proved that there are. But before I get into that, here I am putting in another plug for our website. There's an article on the front page of our website entitled Angels by Martha Wilcox. Very wonderful article and very explanatory about angels and what they are. So, and that they're right here, very close to us. After all, God is impartial in his beneficence. So angels are here for each and every one of us. Anyway, my testimony is thankful for God. There was a day recently when something really wonderful happened to me, and I was so happy, and I just found myself thanking God and thanking him over and over and continually. Anyway, I was driving down the road late at night to one of my stops, and I went in there, made the stop, and then as I left, I got back into my truck again and was on my way. But at that time, there were so many street lights and sign lights that I didn't realize that I had not turned on my headlights for my truck. And of course, it was nighttime. And I didn't go even a half of a block when somebody coming from the other way flashed their lights at me to indicate that I should turn on my headlights, which I did. So for me, that was the angel that gave me the message. It was like God was saying, well, I'm glad that you're thanking me for the good thing that happened earlier, but you still need to be watchful and alert about what's going on. So I found myself thanking God for this angel message. It came from someone that I don't even know who he was, but all was well because of this angel message that came to me that night. So I'm very thankful for that. Fairley from Maryland, go ahead.
Thank you very much for the readings tonight on the Christ, on the freedom which the Christ truth brings us. From last week's lesson, I remembered the quote from 2 Timothy, "For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." When I first came to Plainfield, I was full of fear for the future. I worried about what would eventually become of me. I was afraid, among other things, of living too long, as a fortune teller had once told me I would. Even though I had found Christian Science as an adult, I could not use it in my life, though I continued to read Science and Health through some very difficult experiences and depression. It was only after I came to Plainfield, I was able, through the help of all that's given us here, my practitioner and the teaching, all the teaching, I was able to let go of major fears. I was afraid, I think I already said I was afraid of living too long, as a fortune teller had once told me I would. After I was here shortly, I was freed of so many major fears of that kind, and began also trying to let go of anxious patterns of behavior. Learning how to truly practice Christian Science here at Plainfield has freed me of all sense of fear. It has liberated my life and enabled me to help others. I'm so very grateful to God, to Mrs. Eddy, who gave us this wonderful answer to life, to Jesus, the Christ truth, to my practitioner, teacher, as I continue this amazing journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jeff.
One of the early workers in Christian Science was Edward Kimball, and he said the most important thing for a Christian Scientist to do today is to learn that he or she cannot possibly be saved from accepting error as real until he or she overcomes the habit of self-accusation or self-condemnation. I know what he means speaking about this bad habit because, like a lot of us, I am too prone to think that and say the thing which is wrong is myself. The good news is I do not have to let this error torment me. I can avoid self-depreciation, so can you. But how one might wonder, can we do this? Well, I heard it can be done by changing consciousness, by changing my thoughts as we were taught in Christian Science. And I have been doing this faithfully since attending Plainfield Church. I have learned Christian Science is about seeking knowledge of God's will and the power to carry it out, not my own will. Thy will, not mine, be done. I expect good today because God expects no less than good for me. In truth, He has more good in store for me than I can imagine. In fact, I have to ask myself, how much abundance am I willing to accept? It's like an all-you-can-eat feast, made with the finest ingredients and prepared with the greatest thing in the world, love. I have learned when I am afraid that God does not hand me courage on a silver platter. He gives me the opportunity to be courageous. Like Edward Kimball says, he gives me the opportunity to rid myself of erroneous beliefs.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. Tonight I'll just like to give gratitude to God for the revelation of Christian Science. I'm looking back at my life and I am so deeply grateful to learn the true nature of God through the study of Christian Science. To know that He created no sickness, no lack of any kind, neither did He create any victims of any kind. I am so grateful to learn that all men are reflections of God, that the Christ is present with everyone, and as such, all can learn the truth and be free. Thank you for the music and everyone's testimony. Grateful to be here tonight.
Thank you. Craig.
Thank you for those really great and timely readings tonight. And then thank God also for Rebecca Eddy's What Christmas Means to Me. I was feeling uneasy recently and didn't feel that much Christmas or holiday spirit. And was wanting to get back to really appreciating the Christ and God. So I started reading, and I think it, based on what happened today, it really helped me. Mrs. Eddy talks about how she wanted to celebrate Christmas I celebrate Christmas with my soul, my spiritual sense. And that goes on, but that gave me enough to basically have courage to do maybe more loving things than I had done. I was going to work this morning and getting tickets at the train machine and in Newark. And after I finished, a homeless lady came by and asked me for a little help. And I looked at her and I saw myself years ago. And I said, God has something better for you. I said, sure, I'll give you something. I gave her coins and I gave her a story. And I told her, listen, I was doing day labor, but it doesn't stop there. It gets better, but it's hard. You have to work at it, and it will be better for you. And her friend came over to her, another homeless person, and I said, you need something? He shook his head, and I said, sure. And I gave him something and told him the same story. And I kind of felt more Christmassy. I felt like that was the gift that I could give them. And it made me feel good. And that I was back in step with the spiritual sense that would have me be kind where needed to be. And I thank Mary Baker Eddy for it.
Thank you. Mary.
Okay, I'll read from our church website bulletin board tonight. The first, California. Thank you for the November 30th Wednesday readings given by Elizabeth from Georgia on the theme, Peace, Be Still, God is Our Refuge. They were very beautiful and comforting and so needed at this time. I made a copy to keep close and to study. And then Costa Rica, the testimony that was referred to earlier. Last week we had a hurricane passing right over us in the area where I live here in Costa Rica, which has never happened before. The extreme winds lasted from around 19 hours to 23 hours, and my friend and I kept singing non-stop hymns out of our hymnal by candlelight. Huge coconuts from a very tall 30-foot-high tree bombarded our corrugated roof, denting it, but no leaks developed. In the low-lying flat areas, there was a lot of flooding and landslides. In my village, there was almost no damage except for a great many trees that toppled over. The eye passed over us. We noticed the quiet period, and then the wind came from the opposite direction. I feel strongly that most of the damage was due to hysteria and malpractice. I read the chapter Spirit and Law once more in Miscellaneous Writings, which clarifies our thought on this subject. In view of the many people that lost their properties, I will not say that I am feeling thankful, but I am grateful that evil in all its aggressive manifestations is unreal, and that this can be proved by our disbelief in it. And we will know that God's presence and power is there, was there, is there, and will be there with great love for anyone who suffered or is in need at the moment. God meets every human need, and his love is everlasting. And then Vermont. I'm thankful for the Saturday morning Bible study sessions. They are most instructive and inspiring, and what a wonderful way to start the day as well as the weekend. And then Pennsylvania. I would like to express my gratitude for the Bible study yesterday about Zacharias and Elizabeth, the parents of John the Baptist. It was so helpful to be reminded that, quote, prayers of faith are filed in heaven, end quote, and prayers are not always answered immediately, but are answered in God's good time. There are many other wonderful things brought out in this remarkable Bible study, and I know it can be found on our website for all to enjoy. I'm very grateful tonight for those beautiful readings. What an answer to every problem, the Christ, and that Christ is present everywhere in all situations, and we just have to be receptive to that presence. I love that last hymn we sung, too, number 65. From glory unto glory, be this our joyous song. Here we've been taught that this is how we operate. It's from glory unto glory. I remember before understanding this, I used to go from problem to problem. And before my understanding of science, a problem would often leave me feeling more discouraged and weaker and that sort of thing, and maybe having more of a belief that there was a power other than God. But in science, in Christian science, when you have a healing, you grow stronger for it. You learn more of God's power and presence. You become transformed each time, getting closer to him. So it is from glory to glory, from strength to strength. And that is a wonderful blessing that we have in science. And that is the truth for all mankind. This week our lesson is God the Preserver of Man, the subject of it. And I always like to think of, years ago I looked up that definition of preserver in Webster's 1828 dictionary. And to think of all these things, this is what God does as he preserves us. He keeps us safe from injury or destruction. He defends us from evil. He upholds and sustains us. He saves us from decay. He keeps us in a sound state. And he keeps and defends us from any type of corruption. Those are wonderful things to think about. This is what God does. And as we do think about it and realize the angels of his presence surround us always, we can come through all kinds of things, whether it calls itself a hurricane or a bad disease or a difficult family relationship. God's presence and power is always there for us, defending, sustaining us, and so we go from glory unto glory. So grateful for this meeting tonight and to be with you all.
Thank you.